For more on this, Siracusa joins me. He's a professor of political history and diplomacy, and he's the Dean of Global Futures at Curtin University, and he joins me live now from Perth in Australia. Thank you so much, Professor, for being with us on the program. It's without a doubt going to be interesting to see those two go at it in New Hampshire later on today. What do you expect?
Good afternoon, Efnan. Well, former President Trump is going to win this one. Governor Haley and so-called Ambassador Haley from the United Nations, she is clearly a second. I mean, she's doing very well there. The latest polls, tracking polls, have President Trump at 53% and her at 36, maybe 37. So, and it's winner take all, so he'll do pretty well. Now, Trump has come a long way in about a year and a half. He wasn't this well positioned. And of course, he's got all kinds of things propelling him forward right now. I mean, we got the border, the American southwestern border is hemorrhaging, 10,000 illegals coming through there each day. The war in Ukraine has gone very badly. The war in Gaza has gone very badly. And in fact, people are, I think, looking for leadership in a bad way. And you know, there's something that happened in the last couple of days that you probably didn't notice, and that is the Dow Jones and the S&P 500, major indices in Wall Street, are going through the roof. And of course, these are a prelude to President Trump returning to office. Wall Street likes Trump. They make money off of him. He likes lower taxes and stimulus and that kind of thing. And I also noticed, Efnan, that in Davos, the rich and famous, or what we used to call the good and great, are betting heavily on Trump. Trump's the smart money as far as they're concerned. So they're getting ready to deal with him again. And in a couple of days after the Super Tuesday in March, former President Trump will be the presumptive nominee to the GOP presidential ticket, and which allows him to get all that money in the Republican Party and forces the Republican Party to pay homage to Trump, or they don't get that money. So people who want to run for their offices are going to have to sort of kiss the ring sooner or later.
Right. So all of the elements that you mentioned, Joe, I'm just going to jump in here, because all the elements that you mentioned that have helped Trump regain his popularity also puts Biden in a bad light. And it seems that he's not doing great in the opinion polls, especially with, as you mentioned, the war on Gaza ongoing and the war between Russia and Ukraine at a standstill. What do you think is going to happen when it comes to Biden and Trump going at it at the polls?
Well, I mean, I think about 75% of Americans don't want to see the two of them go at it. They regard them as too old. But, you know, Trump is going to go forward. And Biden, he might win the primaries and drop out at the last minute at the nominating convention in Chicago in July. Look, President Biden right now has about 66 disapproval rating. That's 2 out of 3 Americans don't like him in office. They reckon that they're worse off with him. And this war in Gaza has been a disaster for him. You know, he fails to mention the Palestinian suffering. He fails to get any traction on a two-state proposal. In fact, he's pretty much stuck with what Netanyahu's saying, that I don't think Netanyahu wants a two-state solution, and President Biden isn't going to push him too far. The war in Ukraine has gone sideways. That's going to be finishing probably in the next 6 or 7 months, and Zelensky's not the winner there. So all these things have made President Biden very, very unpopular. Not to mention, you know, despite a little bit of improvement in inflation and things like that, it still costs more money for Americans to buy a house, to rent an apartment, and worst of all, to put groceries in their cart at the grocery store. And you know, I don't know if your membership knows this, or your listeners, but 90% of Americans live from paycheck to paycheck. So when they get hit up for mortgage payments and rent payments, and they can't fill that grocery cart, they get very angry. And there's only one person to blame, and they blame the President of the United States.
Right. I only have about a minute left with you here, Professor, but your comments on how this war on Gaza is affecting Biden. if Biden does call for a ceasefire today, do you think that he can return from the damage that's been done?
No, it's irreversible. President Biden will not come back from the damage he's done in supporting Israel without any limits, providing them with ammunition and bombs and all the rest of it. And of course, in all of his speeches, he never mentions the suffering of the Palestinian people. He knows what's going on. Secretary of State Blinken is embarrassed by the whole thing. Blinken doesn't want all those dead women and children on his resume next time he goes for a job. Look, by holding on to Netanyahu's war plans, by failing to criticize it publicly on a constant basis, and failing to do anything about it. The Gaza war has cost President Biden his presidency, if nothing else did. And of course, it's going to be the end of Netanyahu. You know, the interesting thing here is in the 6 months, Netanyahu will be gone, Biden will be gone, the president of the PLA, the Palestinian Authority will be gone. We're looking at a whole new team and a whole new world out there. And who's coming back? President Trump. He's coming back, and he'll be up to his old tricks again, though we're not quite sure exactly what they are.
All right, Professor. Unfortunately, that's all the time I have left, but thank you so much for being with us here on TRT World. And